I think this will be the remarkable breakthrough in the future when it comes to defending against a threat that we've really been challenged to defend against. Keep in mind that in northeastern Syria, northern Iraq, and so forth, the simple drones used by the Islamic State were fairly difficult to knock down, to deal with, and they were very simplistic. We could deal with them with electronic warfare, other systems. These are a bit more advanced, a bit more challenging, and when they come as a swarm, that's a difficult issue to deal with as well. And I think it's really quite shameful that he bombarded Ukraine during the observation of Christmas there, during New Year's as well, and now during the Russian Orthodox observation, all of a sudden he wants a ceasefire on very short notice, I might add also. I mean, ceasefires actually take a fair amount of planning, coordination, and dissemination of orders and all the rest of that. So this was just another element in the information campaign by Russia to try to persuade the rest that Ukraine is the belligerent, that they're the ones who won't engage in serious negotiations and all the rest of that. And that's all quite nonsensical, frankly, and fantastical as well.
So, General, President Putin claims he called for the ceasefire because Patriarch Kirill, the head of the Russian Orthodox Church, appealed to him to do so. But others say it's because he's running out of ideas, running out of time, running out of ammunition. Which do you think it is?
It's the latter very much. Keep in mind that the Russian Orthodox Church essentially works for Putin. It's controlled by the Russian state. If they asked for something, it was because Putin asked them to ask him for something. So again, that once again is just completely nonsensical and just another example of how desperate Putin really is, which is why he periodically rattles the nuclear saber, why he threatens other actions. He's running out of options. The reality is, with respect to this unprovoked, brutal invasion of Ukraine that he ordered, it's completely backfiring. He set out to make Russia great again. What he's really done is make NATO great again. He's even pushed these two formerly neutral countries into the arms of NATO, Finland and Sweden. On the battlefield, they lost the Battle of Kyiv, also of Sumy, Chernihiv, and Kharkiv. The losses are staggering. Again, depending on whose count you take, could be as high as 100,000 soldiers lost. That's 7 times or so what Russia lost in nearly 10 years of war in Afghanistan, a war that was ultimately unsustainable. And I think that this war eventually, he is going to have to conclude, will be unsustainable as well, not just on the battlefield, where they've lost the strategic initiative to the Ukrainians, who have done a vastly better job of mobilizing their entire country, but also because of the situation on the home front and the damage being done by the economic, financial, and personal sanctions and export controls.
And what impact do you think the French pledge, the German pledge, and the US pledge of armored fighting vehicles, the delivery of those in short order, what impact might they have on the fighting and on the achievement of the kind of goals you think Ukraine needs to make before Russia accepts true negotiation?
Well, this is a very important additional capability that will be provided. They have not had the kind of protected mobility that these advanced infantry fighting vehicles provide, noting that I would like to see ultimately Germany finally commit to providing Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine as well. And I select that in particular because it's a more maintainable platform than is, say, the M1 Abrams tank that the U.S. uses. It's, our tank is basically this 1,500 horsepower jet engine surrounded by armor with a 120 millimeter gun on it. Very challenging to maintain, an incredible fuel hog, very, very capable, don't get me wrong, but much, much more challenging to maintain than the 2 twin diesels of the Leopard 2, which is an exceedingly capable tank as well. That would be transformative when it comes to combat on the front lines in the way that the U.S. provision of the high mobility artillery rocket system has been, especially with the precision munition for it called the guided missile launch rocket, the Gimler, which you can land around on a dinner table at 80 kilometers or so. And I'd like to actually see the U.S. extend the range of that by providing something called the small diameter bomb. We have a lot of them. They're actually much less costly than the Gimlers. That would be another very important capability, not the range of the Army tactical missile system all the way out to 300 kilometers, but say 150 kilometers, which would put all of Crimea at threat, an important location for air, naval, and logistical bases and lines of communication for Russia. And then also I'd like to see the provision of advanced drones. What Ukraine has right now are in many cases fairly modest in capability, a lot of do-it-yourself kinds of stuff. We need to get them the Predator. That's not the most advanced. It's not the Reaper, which the US, UK, and others use. I don't think the threat of that technology falling into enemy hands would be that dramatic. It's actually, we've lost them in previous battlefields. But those capabilities would be very, very helpful as well. And then additional capability to augment their air defense systems. We're already providing the Patriot. That's a huge leap forward, as are, again, US, UK, and others are providing other elements of a comprehensive and integrated air and ballistic missile early warning and defense system. But I'd like to see us extend that into the counter drone.
General, that's quite a shopping list, and it will come with quite a cost, both in financial terms and, you imagine, in Washington, they think, in military terms. Do you think NATO
these are affordable,
leaders...
Actually, these are affordable. Again, it's more challenging actually to provide Patriots, which we need around the world. We are already allocating shortages, as the term is, when it comes to the Patriot anti-air and ballistic missile defense system. Again, they actually, as I said, the small diameter bomb is actually cheaper than the guided missile launch rocket system. And we have many more of them. We have lots of these in the arsenal. Again, the Predators, we have probably thousands, if not hundreds of Predators that are in essentially mothball status or on the shelf. Those, I think, are also affordable. Again, the tank, that's a bigger issue. And again, the key is how can we persuade Germany? I mean, when I was in Berlin a couple of months ago, the plea was from very senior government officials, look, just provide them 5 M1 American Abrams tanks, and then we'll provide dozens of Leopard. If that's the price, go ahead and do it. The problem is, again, maintaining the U.S. tank is very, very challenging. Again, I've had them under my command, and the consumption of fuel is just staggering as well. But that, again, I think is very doable. Again, the cutting edge counter drone stuff is a little more challenging because we don't even have that fielded, frankly, around the world yet. It's just coming into the arsenal. But what better chance to prove this and to show what it can do and maybe what it can't do than in an actual battlefield. I think this will be the remarkable breakthrough in the future when it comes to defending against a threat that we've really been challenged to defend against. Keep in mind that in northeastern Syria, northern Iraq, and so forth, just the simple drones used by the Islamic State were fairly difficult to knock down, to deal with, and they were very simplistic. We could deal with them with electronic warfare, other systems. These are a bit more advanced, a bit more challenging, and when they come as a swarm, that's a difficult issue to deal with as well.
So, General, if this is all doable and affordable, what's stopping the US government, the UK, the other NATO leaders from implementing this? Is it a political calculation? Are they concerned that if they do go ahead and unleash all of this weaponry, the Russians will say, aha, you're getting deeper and deeper into this. We're now going to go a stage or two further than we'd intended, and it's your fault. If that's the case, do you feel now it's time to unleash the shackles, forget all those concerns, and go for broke? Is that what you're saying?
Well, as usual, there are numerous factors at play here. There's no single particular one. It's a combination, in some cases, of do we have enough? Are we depleting our own essential capabilities? Number two, what's the cost? And again, we've provided staggering quantities of assistance. And again, I should be upfront. I am hugely impressed. I think what the U.S. has done in leading the world in this regard, by the way, the U.K. probably number 2 in this effort, and then our other allies and partners, this is hugely impressive. Again, the U.S. is already at something like approaching $22 billion in arms, ammunition, and other materiel, really just since the war began, I believe. And in aggregate, I've seen numbers as high as 50 billion when you bring in all the economic, humanitarian, and other forms of assistance that we have provided. That said, again, there are always additional capabilities that emerge as being important. These are among them. I believe they are affordable. There are, yes, concerns about how might Russia react to this, but we've gone through that repeatedly. It started out with, when the UK was the very first to provide the shoulder-launched anti-tank guided missiles. I think provided the NLAWs at that time. Then, the US sort of watched, nothing happened, and 2 days later, we start plowing in thousands and thousands of the Javelin anti-tank guided missile. And again, this has continued to go. Thinking evolves, situations evolve, contexts change. And I think and I know that these discussions are underway. As you know, it was just yesterday, I believe, that the infantry fighting vehicle announcement was made after a virtual meeting between U.S. and German leaders and others. And so I think these, I hope, will come sooner to a theater near us, as the saying goes, than later, because I do think the risk of this, the cost of this in a variety of different ways is by no means excessive, and they could be very important capabilities. Again, there's no silver bullet here. There's no one single game-changing capability that all of a sudden enables Ukraine to win the war rapidly. It's more the aggregation of all of these capabilities and then using all of them together where that is most important. Noting, by the way, that Ukraine has done something Russia has not done, which is to achieve combined arms effects. In other words, not just tanks rolling down the road, but tanks protected by infantry who keep the anti-tank guided missiles off the tanks, enabled by mortar and artillery fire as close to your advancing forces as is safe and possible. Close air support, attack helicopters where you can, and that's very limited on the Ukrainian side, employment of electronic warfare, engineers to reduce obstacles, and EOD to diffuse explosives, air defense to keep the enemy's air off you, all of this together. And the Ukrainians have surprisingly, to some, not me actually, because I've seen them develop since 2014 and then further enabled, obviously, since the beginning of the invasion, of this provision of extraordinary quantities of arms, ammunition, materiel. But they've done this, and the Russians surprisingly have not.